This is the new 5th generation Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and it's quite a significant new model. It is larger, more luxurious, safer and more technologically advanced than the model it replaces. It's also $15,000 dearer depending on the variant that you buy. But of course, Mercedes-Benz says it's got that much more value inside it. Well, does it? Let's find out. Now there'll be two variants in the Australian range initially. There's the C200, which is starting at $78,900, has a relatively small 1.5 litre turbocharged engine, which is good for around 150 kilowatts. This one here is the C300 sedan, which has a 2 litre turbocharged engine with 190 kilowatts. It'll do 0 to 100 in around 6 seconds. Fuel consumption, 7.3 litres per 100 kilometres. Now all Mercedes-Benz Australia C-Classes come with the AMG line body kit standard, which really makes these cars look like sporty sedans. Later on this year we'll see the first of two new variants. C43, which promises a fair bit of performance, and next year hopefully the all-new C63. But until then, C200 and C300 is where it's at. So enough about that, let's jump in and have a look. Now all C-Classes come with a fair bit of kit, as we'll see as we go through the interior, but I thought I'd start with the back seat first because that's where one of the biggest changes has taken place. The car is much longer, which means you've got much more legroom in the back seat and good under seat footroom as well. So you shouldn't have a problem even if you're a 6-footer. If you're a bit taller, you might run into some difficulties. Now one of the other big additions here, center armrest, nice and comfortable, and it's got one of these little handy phone holders built in, which then also shows you the cup holders. Nice bit of convenience. You've also got a couple of air vents down here to keep the air flowing. But in the C200 and C300 there are no climate controls back here. There's also no USB ports. So if you're going to take your kids on a road trip, make sure their iPads are fully charged before you get in the car. Alright, let's jump to the front seats and see what we can find. Now anyone who's familiar with the old W205 C-Class will straight away spot that this interior is worlds different. It introduces Mercedes-Benz's MBUX user interface technology to the cabin, which is centered around this 11.9-inch touchscreen multimedia system. For the driver, there's also a 12.3-inch instrument binnacle with full digital display, and one of the cool things that this has is augmented reality, which when you're using the sat-nav is very handy. Now there are a couple of other things I just want to point out. First of which, this new door skin which has been hollowed out, which really adds to the feeling of interior space in here. And the second thing, speaking of space, dual pane sunroof, which lets sun into the front and back, which really opens up the interior. Okay, enough talking, let's go for a drive. Now I don't think I mentioned it up front, but both the C2 and 300s have a 48 volt mild hybrid powertrain. So that means there's an electric motor assisting with some of the more basic tasks, like moving off from the mark, or when you're coasting or gliding. And the idea is that it just reduces some of the load on the petrol engine and helps it where necessary, just to keep fuel use down. And that's partly how Mercedes-Benz gets a claim of 7.3 litres per 100 for the fuel economy. Now the ride in this C300 that we're testing now is very good, but I should say it's got the optional adaptive suspension system, which lets you adjust the dampers to either prioritise comfort or performance. So in comfort mode it can feel a little bit wafty. I'd almost call it like that luxury limo kind of gliding over the top of the road. But if you firm it up into the Sports or even Sports Plus, it really ties the car down to the road, connects it to the road, and makes this handle a lot more like a sporty sedan. It is a $3,500 option, but it does bring another little gift, and that is rear steering. So what that is at low speeds under 60 kilometers an hour, the rear wheels can turn by up to 2.5 degrees in concert with the front wheels, which tightens your turning circle. Over 60 kilometers an hour, they actually turn the same way as the front wheels, which has the effect of lengthening the wheelbase and giving the car more stability at speed. It's kind of cool, but I'm not sure you'd notice unless you drove the two cars back to back. As for this drivetrain, the C300 we're driving now, it's the sweet spot. I drove the C200 earlier, And that 1.5 litre turbo 4-cylinder with 150 kilowatts, 300 newton meters, 0 to 100 in 7.3, it's kind of only adequate. I mean, it's fine, absolutely fine if that's the car you choose. But the Mercedes badge promises effortless motoring in my mind, and that powertrain is more adequate than effortless. This C300 with more kilowatts and 100 newton meters more torque is much more in keeping with the Mercedes promise. It is a very sweet powertrain, and particularly with Merc's 9-speed automatic transmission, which glides through the gears. You won't even notice it changing gears unless you're looking at the dash. And when you hurry things along, put the foot down, it drops ratios to give you that punch that you need. Now, 9th gear is a bit of a, I don't know if you'll ever use it. Like in Australia, it only kicks in at over 110 kilometres an hour, which means you're breaking the speed limit somewhere, unless you're in the Northern Territory. Now, as with any car, there's a lot more devil in the detail, but I don't have time to go through it just now. So make sure you go to drive.com.au and read the review to find out about all the active safety features and the other equipment that this car gets. But for now, I really like the C300. I think it's the sweet spot in the range. It's a very good car, and it has what premium buyers will expect. But is it worth $15,000 more? That's a big question. And in January 2022, Mercedes-Benz also moved to what's being called an agency model. There's no haggling on the price of their cars. It's kind of like what Apple does with the iPhone. You pay the price or you don't. How will buyers go with that? Some may love it. After all, Mercedes is a premium product. It's desirable. Some may not. Will those buyers see $15,000 more value in this car? I can see some of it, but I'm not sure it's worth that much of a price hike. I guess time will tell. So there you go. That's a quick look at the new W206 Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Now before you go, make sure you hit like so my boss thinks I'm doing a good job, and subscribe so that you get notified when we drop new videos. And head on over to drive.com.au to read my review of the new Mercedes-Benz C-Class, which has all the details of what's changed on this car. See you next time.